And we're back. Mike Cernovich, DangerandPlay.com. Growth Mindset. More hypocrisy in the New York Times newsroom. Really interesting thing happened today on Twitter. There was a threat of rape and human trafficking made against Melania Trump. Now, I would like to say, I would imagine that a Trump supporter had said this about Obama, about Michelle Obama. Ayo, A-Y-O. Ayo, Obama, shut your punk ass up talking shit about my uncle before we pimp your wife and make her work for us. I'll say that one more time. Ayo, A-Y-O, I'm not really sure what that word is. A-Y-O. Ayo, thank you, Shauna. Ayo, Barack Obama, shut your punk ass mouth up before we pimp your wife and make her work for us. I suspect that people would be rather uncool with that. So here's what Sopan Deb had to say about it. He thinks it's funny. He goes, oh, the outrage from Breitbart News. He makes some dumb, he makes some dumbass joke, right? So what would he say? What if a Trump supporter had said that about Melania? Would he be saying, oh, ha, 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 this is so funny, let's make a joke, or about Michelle Obama? Would he be saying, oh, it's funny, or whatever? I definitely don't think so. So my question would be, does he support human trafficking? I guess would be my question. Does he support human trafficking because he did not disavow that rape threat against Melania Trump? So I would have to say, based on what we know about disavowing and everything, I would say that Sopan Deb, S-O-P-A-N-D-E-B, I would say that he definitely supports rape and human trafficking, and I base that on a real simple analysis. He's, quote, retweeting jokes about human trafficking and about rape and forcing women into prostitution. And he thinks it's funny, let's just joke, let's just talk about it, rather than disavow it, rather than express any kind of reaction other than a joke. So I would say that he definitely supports human trafficking. He definitely supports rape and forcing women into prostitution. And he certainly hasn't said anything to disavow it. So just so we know that I'm being fair, because a lot of people say, Mike, you're unfair. The original tweet by Little Bow Wow says, Ayo, real Donald Trump, shut your punk ass up talking shit about my Uncle Snoop Dogg before we pimp your wife and make her work for us. As a lawyer, I would say, before we pimp your wife and make her work for us, that is forcing somebody into human trafficking. That is forcing someone into human trafficking. Okay? That's what that is doing. So the reaction from Sopan Deb of the New York Times is to say the outrage from Breitbart News is going to be through the woof. So he's just joking, hey, let's just banter. Now, if that's on 4chan or whatever, just banter. This is the New York Times. You would think that the New York Times would hold themselves to a higher standard of conduct than 4chan would, or than maybe edgier people in the alt-right would. You would think that, but even something like this, I've never seen anybody on the alt-right. Let's talk about the alt-right and 4chan. I've never seen anything from the alt-right directed about Michelle Obama like this. Name the edgier account, like The Right Stuff, or think of the edgiest account, alt-right account on Twitter. Could you imagine any of them threatening to pimp out and enslave Michelle Obama into human trafficking? Right? I've never seen anything like that from the alt-right. I've never seen anything remotely approaching that at all. But we know what would happen if the alt-right did anything or said anything like that. There would be outrage, right? But Sopan Deb of the New York Times, he just thinks it's funny, it's a big joke and everything. So my advice is, I'm thinking we should probably call the New York Times. I don't know how their phone system works or whatever, but I'm thinking we should call the New York Times and just say, why is it that you support human trafficking? Why is there human traffickers at the New York Times? Is Sopan Deb, does he speak for the New York Times when he jokes about human trafficking? Does he really, really think it's funny? So the customer care line for the New York Times is 1-800-698-4633. 4637. The number again is 1-800-698-4637. That is the phone number, 1-800-698-4637. And I think that we should call the New York Times and ask them what their position on human trafficking is. And rather, Sopan Dev, who supports human trafficking and thinks it's funny and thinks it's just fun and games, threats of pimping people out. We should ask, is that the official position of the New York Times, or is Sopan Dev, or is he just a minority viewpoint on that, and that really they don't support it, right? That would be my question, because I cannot reach any other conclusion. I cannot reach any conclusion other than Sopan Dev supports human trafficking. Because not only did he refuse to disavow that reference, he jokes about it and is bantering about it, which tells me that he supports it. Another person that we should definitely contact, there's a public editor. So I'm going to tell you the New York Times is public editor, okay? So New York Times public editor, and I'm going to give you your email, because we should ask the public. So the public editor's job is to interact with the public and say, what do you think about the New York Times? So the editor is public@nytimes.com. Liz Spade is her name. So the email address of the public editor is public@nytimes.com. So I think that we should ask Elizabeth Spade, the public editor, is human trafficking supported by the New York Times? Is Sopan Dev the only guy who supports human trafficking, or is that kind of like everything? So I'm going to retweet this. Still waiting. Hold on. So I'll retweet it to the top of my line. So I'm going to retweet it because her Twitter is SPAYDL is at Sopan Deb, who's the New York Times guy. So is Sopan's Dev view that human trafficking is a joke common among NY Times reporters? Or I'll just say employees. So we public at nytimes.com. We definitely want to find out why the New York Times supports human trafficking. Why is it that they support violence against women, pimping people out? Why do they think that this is funny and it's just a joke? Right? I think that's an important question to ask, because we live in a day of everybody has to disavow people they disagree with. And Sopan Deb did not only refuse to disavow, but he also made jokes about it. He thinks it's funny. And I just want to know if that's the New York... They have every right, by the way. I support free speech. The New York Times has every right to support human trafficking. They have every right to support human trafficking. Sopan Deb has every right to advocate for pimping out women and abusing women. He has every right to advocate human trafficking. 100%. So I'm not saying he doesn't have the free speech right to do it. I just want to know, is that the position of everybody in the New York Times? Or is that just maybe his position? What is the public editor's position? This is real journalism. Real journalism is we want to find out what exactly the New York Times believes. We want to find out what do they believe. And I'll also say you can email the public editor at the NY Times to ask about Sopan Deb's views that human trafficking is funny. So yeah, very important that we send emails, because we need to investigate this. This is what journalism is. This guy had said something and had advocated human trafficking, and all I want to do is find out who at the New York Times is that a view that they all share. Is it a view, maybe he's the only guy who has it. We don't really know. On another note, Little Bow Wow, I've got people in his weight class who would like to lace up them gloves and have a little fight with them. Sanctioned fight, pay-per-view for charity. So Little Bow Wow is threatening to pimp out people, to commit human trafficking, you know, the usual. So it would be unfair for me and Little Bow Wow. I couldn't fight Little Bow Wow. He's not in my weight class. He's like 135 pounds. Why don't I fight him? Because that would never be approved. It would never be sanctioned. Right? You just couldn't. He would never fight me, of course. I'm 6'170", I'll beat your ass. Actually, no, you wouldn't. You would actually have no shot at all, really. It would be a joke how quickly you would be chewed up. But anyway, so I have guys in Little Bow Wow's class, and I definitely think that he should take the bout to show people how tough he is, because he's a very, very, very tough guy. And he's a pimp, sex trafficker, human trafficker. I think that he should show people how tough he is. Anyone want these hands? Say the word. Okay, see, I'm looking at your picture, and your neck is 13 inches. Okay, I look at your AVI. Okay, your AVI, your neck is 13 inches. You don't got no hands, fam. You don't got no hands. You can talk all day about how you got hands, fam. You want to throw hands. But all I got to do is look at your neck and your face. You've never been punched in the face. I can tell that. I can just look at you. If your neck is tiny, tiny like my wrist, if your neck isn't bigger around than my forearm, then you've obviously never trained, done anything else. So you're not going to impress anybody around here. There are people here who have actually been in the UFC and trained hard, who read my stuff, and that I'm friends with. So this isn't your high school schoolyard where you're talking about how tough you are, thug life and everything. This is actually people who have done real things in real life. Many people here have been in Afghanistan and Iraq, many combat veterans, many people, combat infantrymen, you name it, right? So you're in a room of adults and people who are actually legitimate. I'm way down the list in terms of legitimate. In terms of who reads me and follows my news reporting and journalism and stuff, I'm not even on camera, right? In terms of the people who actually read my stuff, they're up here. I'm not even at their level. So you talking about throwing hands, you're not even where I am, and I'm not even up here. Just reality. No offense, that's life. In life, you got people who have been there and done that in ways that you can't comprehend. But of everything that we stand for, and proving my point more than anything else by being a trashy person like you are, by being garbage like you are. That's why I haven't banned you, because I like people like you to come to my streams and to show that you're complete garbage, you're trash, you're nothing, you can't fight, you can't do anything in life, you can't even form a coherent sentence. So you're not actually street tough, you're not thug, you're not intelligent, you have nothing going on in your life. That is a typical Hillary Clinton voter. That is a typical Barack Obama supporter. So I want you to be on my stream, because this is what people who support Hillary Clinton look like. This is what America would look like if Hillary Clinton had won. More people like you would be allowed into America. Trash like you. So thank you for demonstrating far better than I could, because a lot of people think I make things up because you're such trash and you're such garbage that people can't believe that you're actually real. See? But I don't have to make up the left. You are the typical Hillary Clinton supporter, the typical Barack Obama supporter, and I want to thank you for coming onto the stream and demonstrating to people why we voted for Trump and why we supported Trump. Because we can't have more people like you in America. We cannot let you in. We definitely have to send you back. You have to go home. But anyhow, I encourage everybody to contact the public editor at the New York Times and be very polite. Be very polite. All we want to know is we want to find out, is Sopan Deb, is his view on human trafficking, namely that it's funny, we should joke about it, it's no big deal. Is that the view of most people who work at the New York Times? Is that a minority view? Is that just a couple people? We don't really know, but we're doing journalism, and we want to investigate this. So if you go to my Twitter, twitter.com/Cernovich, I've given you the address, and we need to contact the public editor at the Times. Hey, Sopan Deb thinks that human trafficking is funny. Is that the view of the New York Times? Is that the view of everybody there, or only a couple people there? That would be my question. Be very civil, be very polite. I'm not going to delete this. I'm not going to delete this Periscope, because I want you to share this on YouTube. I want you to share the email address of the public editor. We need to write letters and find out what they believe. But again, we want to be very civil. We definitely, for real, we want to be very civil. And we don't insult people. Just say, hey, is this the viewpoint of the New York Times? That human trafficking isn't funny. Let's just do it and have fun and joke about it. Because again, I support free speech, and I think that Sopan Deb has every right to advocate for human trafficking and to advocate for pimping. I don't agree with that view. I think that's pretty disgusting. I can't believe in 2017 people actually believe this, right? I can't believe that there are people like that in America at the New York Times who actually have these points of view. But it's important that we know, and it's important that we ask the New York Times about that. So thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Cernovich, dangerandplay.com, Guerrilla Mindset. Email the public editor at the New York Times. Send them emails out and ask them very politely, why does the New York Times support human trafficking? And is human trafficking a laughing matter? Personally, I don't believe it is, but let's find out what the New York Times has to say. Thanks for tuning in.